Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Business. We're keeping it local today, well, to me anyway, and we're chatting to Neil, the director of the Brockswood Animal Sanctuary. And if you've never heard of this place, then please do have a look for it on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the net so you can get a feel for what we're talking about today. Or just have a listen to this video because we're going to be talking about it in depth and in detail with some of their past projects, the impact of coronavirus, and what's next for this absolutely fantastic place. So here we go. Let's talk business with Neil. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Business. We have got a local one today, local to me anyway. We're talking to Neil from the Brockswood Animal Sanctuary. Hello, Neil. How are you today?
Morning, Danny. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much. Firstly, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. I am a big Broxwood fan, but I'm aware that some of our viewers and listeners might not know who you are and what Broxwood is. So who is Neil? Who are we talking to today?
Neil Swan. I've run animal sanctuaries for about 30 years. In fact, a sister sanctuary to Broxwood called Proteus Reptile Trust. It's on the same site as us. He's actually 30 years old this year.
Wow.
Yep, and that's what I do. Proteus is a registered charity, which I'm a trustee of, and Broxwood is not a registered charity, but it is a not-for-profit, a limited by guarantee company.
Yeah.
That we will probably turn into a CIC. That's something you probably want to discuss a bit later. And I'm a director of Broxwood.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are talking to kind of a man in charge today. That's great because you'll be able to help us out with some of the questions we've got then. So what is Brockswood Animal Sanctuary? Where are you and what do you do?
Right, we are exactly as it says on the tin. It's Brockswood Animal Sanctuary is just that. We take in sick, injured, unwanted animals, bring them here, rehabilitate them, and then in the vast majority of cases we give them a permanent home. The other side to what we do is the fact that once those animals are here, we try and use them very much for educational purposes. We look at both education in terms of both informal and formal, and what I mean by that is we open our doors during the summer to the public, which helps with income, but it also helps educate people. A lot of our animals, our signage is not just about the technical details of the animals, how big they grow, how heavy they weigh, what they eat, how many babies they have, but also about what they do, where they come from, why they're with us. There seems to be a big thing in the Black Country that it's a good thing to have a goat or a sheep in your back garden. We got a lot of sheep and goats here that prove otherwise, and we even find them, we've been handed into us, or the council have asked us to go out and get them because they've been wandering around high streets. We have at least 3 animals here that have been wandering around in or around Brierley Hill High Street.
Wow.
If
anybody knows Brierley Hill, then that's not a great situation to be in.
No, Russell's Hall Hospital and the Russell's Hall area, we've had a couple of animals from that area. Sheep just wandering the streets. I don't know whether they've got out from somewhere or managed to get off the back of a lorry or something, but so we have a lot of animals like that. So we like to try and educate people on what is a good pet, what is a bad pet, animal welfare issues. And we even find there's a lot of people who will take on what would seem a fairly easy pet to look after, say like a rabbit, and they're not necessarily that easy. And there's a lot of rabbits being dumped. And the biggest problem we've probably got right now is chickens. Chickens are really big, popular pets, and they're being dumped all the time on our car park.
That's right. There has been quite a boom, hasn't there, in chickens as pets. It's become quite fashionable. Quite, the people who, and I'm not lumping people into categories here, but certainly in terms of getting the chicken because then you've got your own free range eggs and you're looking after animals and things. But unfortunately, not everybody seems to be sticking with it by the sounds of it from what you're saying there. Am I right in thinking on that note, you've got is it a new chicken enclosure opening up soon? Did I see that right on your social medias?
Yeah, what we did an Easter raffle.
That's it.
And to raise money for new chicken and aviaries. I mean, we inherited this site. I mean, this site has been here a long time. It was built late 50s, early 60s. Some of the aviaries are still, from that era, and they need a lot of work. And so that's what we're doing. We took the site on in a very bad, very dilapidated condition, and we're systematically getting it up to scratch, bringing the enclosures up to scratch, replacing old ones with new. And the chickens have come to the forefront really because of the amount of problems that we're having, the amount of calls. I mean, it's almost a daily occurrence now for chickens.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And of course, unfortunately, there's still a very big thing with schools. They tend to, buy eggs, hatch eggs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, not all eggs that hatch are chickens that lay eggs. You've then got the roosters that when they're adults, they'll fight with other roosters. They'll be crowing at, not just dawn, but any time from sort of 1 o'clock in the morning onwards, upsetting your neighbours and that sort of thing.
So it's quite a big... Carry on, sorry.
So it's not as straightforward as people think. So even like if we get limited with roosters, because if we've got our hens have to be in enclosures because of fox problems. We're right on Cotwell End Valley. We've got lots of wild foxes and that sort of thing. So if we just let them in the fields, they'll just all get eaten. So we've got them in runs, but then you can only put one cockerel, one rooster in a run with a number of chickens. Chickens will all get on. I mean, they do, they do have a go to each other, hence the term hen pecks. And sometimes they'll have a go at the rooster. But you put two roosters together and you'll end up with one dead one. Wow. And so we're limited on what we can take.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say there with schools doing it, because I've seen a lot of that, and it's great learning experience for students, especially the younger students, to see, how have we kept the eggs going, what's like the process of that. But obviously the end result of that also needs to be considered, doesn't it? Because you are limited in what you can do. And there's only so much that you and the local community can do as well. So that's interesting. Yeah. And, talking about the education side, I love the education side. I learned loads walking around there. My daughter's looking at all the animals and things, and I'm saying, hold on a minute, I haven't finished this board yet. But, it's a great experience for all of us, when we go and we bring the little family and things like that. So, I mean, who's your target market then? Is it the families that they are your number one that you're trying to get in, or you're trying to get more school groups in? Who is your target market at Broxwood?
It's actually quite broad. We don't have a very specific market because we do different things. So we're targeting different groups for the different sort of facets of the project. So as I mentioned, we talked briefly about the signage and the information on the animals. That's what we call informal education. So anybody who's visiting can come round, they can see that, they can learn about the difficulties and that sort of thing. But then there's a more formal education side of what we do. And we work with local colleges. And from the 19th of April, we will be having students back. We work a lot with Dudley College and Sandwell, and we have students here and we do practical work with them. They do work experience here. And we try to give them some real world animal care experience. We take work experience very seriously here, probably a lot more seriously than some places. And on a good year, when we haven't got coronavirus getting in the way and all the rest of it, we can offer upwards of 6,000 hours of work experience a year.
Wow. Just for little old Broxwood. I mean, that's amazing. I knew that you did it. I didn't know you did it on that kind of, I mean, that's such an impact on the local community, what you're giving back there.
I think in reality, given our size, we're one of the biggest work experience providers in the area. Wow. We will have anything up to 20 students a day.
Wow.
But they do get real experience. They don't sort of go in our classroom when it rains and snows, because the animals still need feeding when it rains
Yeah,
and snows,
doesn't work like
or
that.
when the fields are muddy and that sort of thing.
Mm.
They do get really into the muck and bullets of it, and
Yeah.
some of them don't like it. In some cases, it's shown them that the animal care isn't for them. But
Yeah, and
work
that's great.
experience,
That's what work experience can do, isn't it? It can show you what you're made for, and also what you're not.
exactly. And so many people miss that. They see work experience as something, or you've decided to do something, and now you're getting experience in it. But the
Yeah,
flip side is it. If you can find out at an early stage that a job isn't for you, then you're not wasting years and years. You might as well move into
yeah,
something else if it isn't for you. And animal care isn't for everybody.
yeah,
The TV programs don't really help us in that respect. You see a lot of people loving animals better, but in
yeah,
reality, that's it's nothing like that.
yeah.
It's
That's right.
it's hard work. It's long
Yeah,
hours.
yeah,
It can be cold and wet and damp. I've
yeah.
had staff stop in stables all night long, you know,
Wow.
and then start work the next morning just so they can be with an animal, be there every 2 hours when it needs attention or feeding
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. And I saw
So
that
it's
through during like the start of the pandemic last year. So we're April 2021 now, but I
yeah.
remember stories of your keepers choosing to live in
Mm-hmm.
and kind of be away from families and things like that. And
Yeah.
that's a massive decision. You're not going to get that for a lot of to throw the air quotes up jobs. You're not going to get that
No.
dedication and devotion, are you? And thank you for making my job easy by saying that work experience isn't always positive, because I say that all the time. And so to hear real industry people say you
Yeah.
might not like it is it's so straightforward a concept.
Yes.
And it's fascinating that you see that, and but then you're still helping people out because you've saved them tens of thousands of pounds in university fees to
Yeah.
do a course they're not going to enjoy. So
A lot
I
of a
mean,
lot of anguish. Yeah.
you've got a real dedicated team there, don't you, down at Broxwood? They seem to be next level in terms of what they give back to the animals of the community.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, the office that I'm in now is quite a big office, and the other end of it was literally a dormitory, um,
Wow.
where the girls stayed for months. But yeah, it's a sort of job that it really is a vocation. It's really something you're gonna have to want to do,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
because the animals don't turn off at 5 o'clock of an evening and turn back on at 9 o'clock of a morning.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, that's again, you talked about like what the TV shows kind of portray and glamorize to a certain extent. And you got 30 minutes and an animal gets ill and then a keeper comes in and then everything ends up all happily and everybody's smiling and things. I'd love to see a TV show what happens at yours, because you're right. It's you can see why people want to go into animal care when they watch kind of the general media perception of it.
Yeah, you
Um,
can.
so you can also see why you make, and without using the term too harshly, make or break people, can't you, in a couple of weeks of actually doing it?
Oh yeah, you can, without a doubt. It is real tough, hard work. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
But if the flip side of that though is that because I like to think that we do work experience right,
Mm-hmm.
then after 6 months with us, they've learnt a lot. I mean,
I bet.
and with the right students, if they're prepared to give their all into the work experience, then we're prepared to teach them as much as we know. And there's nothing that we won't let them do if they're the right person. If they're just treading water, killing time, it's not for them. Then yeah, they'll probably get bored of doing high nets and whatnot. But if we can trust them and they're into it, then they will get to do other things, medications and stuff like that.
Wow.
But there's a lot of discipline. There's a lot of hygiene and cleaning, and
I
that's
bet.
just done day in, day out, day in, day out. And there's a lot of repetitive work to animal
Yeah.
care. You
Yeah.
know, the way we sort of look at it here is the day is split into thirds, and the first third of the day, the morning feeds, the cleaning, um, you know, the sort of the daily routines. Then you might get that middle bit of the day where you have slightly more free time to work on enrichment of enclosures or something like that, do some repairs, talk to the public if we're open or whatever. And then the last third of the day are the afternoon feeds, and then all the close down and lockdown procedures, you know. And it's the same routine every day. It is, in one respect, very repetitive.
So what are the rewards for getting into it then? I'm going to guess, you know, like teachers, you're not all millionaires there. You know, I'm guessing money isn't the main motivator
No, it
to
isn't.
do this. So why would you do it then? You know, if it's this difficult and challenging, what are some of the rewards that you and your staff get out of what you do?
Well, one is the education, and if somebody has a conversation with you or sees something that you do or reads a sign you put together and goes away and looks after or their animal better or treats another animal better, then that's good. And there's also the, you know, we do get some really sorry cases, you know, handed into us. We've had everything from emaciation, broken limbs, knocked over by cars, birds of prey bounced off windshields of lorries and whatnot. And you sometimes need a bit of a strong stomach to deal with that. You know, they come in a bit bloody and battered and bruised. But when you've worked with them for weeks on end, and then at the end of it, you've got a happy, healthy animal, then that again is rewarding itself. And the keepers live for that. You know, that sort of end result where you've took something that's in a really bad way and you've given it another lease of life. That's what it's all about.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And then, you know, if you can pass that message on to others as well, and how joyful and rewarding it can be, and, you know, and enlightening to individuals, then that's fantastic. So what about, you know, in the last year or two, your social media has really taken off. You know, I follow you on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and there's been a real kind of shift in the last year or two with regards to how that's kind of changed and the messages you're sending out. Because again, not all those messages are positive. You know, you seem to be very honest in what you're telling people, which is nice to see. You know, it's kind of refreshing. It seems quite authentic. Has that been like a conscious choice in the last year or two to really up the social media game at Broxwood?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. It became fairly obvious to us that traditional ways of working, traditional ways of running places like this, or even if they're not an animal sanctuary, just a small children's farm or a small zoo style thing, you know, things had to change. And people's opinions and views are also changing. And I think one of the things that I didn't like, and I always dreaded, was overselling ourselves. I mean, we took this site on in a pretty terrible state. And the last thing I wanted to do was people to come here thinking it was something that it isn't. And part of our social media strategy now is to manage people's expectations of what we do, what's here, how we operate, and the realities of looking after animals and animal care on a, you know, I wouldn't say a commercial scale, but, you know, on a larger scale than what you would do at home. So yes, it has. It's been a very conscious decision, and I'm really pleased with how it's gone. Our website is really good. We started 2020 with a new website, and that's taken off. But investing a bit into better websites means that, you know, we have better opportunities for, you know, e-commerce, online shops, and that's the, you know, the sort of thing we're developing. Obviously, 2020 just slowed us down, just slowed everybody down, you know, and there was things, that we'd planned to do that, you know, we never got around to. I mean, the beginning of 2020 as well, we issued our first 3-year strategy. You know, what, you know, our views for Broxford, what we want it to be, where we want to take it, because we have aspirations to be more than an animal sanctuary. Right. What I mean by that is, I mean, we've got a 16-acre site here. Not all of it can be used for the animals. not unless we decide to chop down hundreds of trees and that sort of thing. And what we feel is, in one respect, we can almost be as much of a sanctuary for people as we can for animals. You know, when we are looking after animals, bringing people in, helping us, working with us, can be as much a benefit for them as it is the animals. I mean, if you look back at what the Scandinavians have been doing for the last 40 years with green care and care farms and that sort of thing, you know, where people with, you know, illnesses, both physical and mental illnesses, can really benefit from being close to animals, working with animals, working in the woodlands and that sort of thing. And that's what we really want to do. So we've sort of gone from being a very traditional animal sanctuary that also opens its doors, you know, during the summer, to having these two very distinct prongs where you've got the animal side of what we do and then the complementary people side of what we do.
Wow.
And 2020 was going to be the big push into that, but obviously that didn't happen. But the social media was key to all of that.
Yeah.
Key to showing people exactly what we do, exactly what we're about, so that people who do want to come and join us, do want to be volunteers, then they know exactly what they're getting into.
Yeah, I was listening to another show the other day, and it was talking about being authentic on social media and the importance of just being you. And if your customers like it, they like it, and if they don't, then they're not for you anyway. And that really feels that that's what you're getting at Brockswood. You know, this is what it is. This is how we care for the animals. This is our site. You're going to get muddy. You know, sometimes it's going to rain. We've got a little gift shop. You know, this is what it is, and you know, but that seems to be working. You know, your views and your likes and your sharing and all that seems to be increasing, and hopefully that'll bring in more people. And you know, and you seem to also focus on. I've seen a lot of like the superstars lately. You know, your Callums and your Groots and your Freyas and all that type of stuff. You know, I brought the Callum Valentine's card, a lovely little marketing thing there, and you did, and I presume you will do, you know, your special events for Christmas events, for dog shows and things like that as a bit of variety. Is that something you're looking to do more of then once you're allowed to?
Oh yeah, again, we had youth plans for 2020, because we work with other groups, we work with other local community groups. I mean, we have a Viking village on site, which is very, very unusual for an animal sanctuary. Would you want some background to that?
Yes, please. Yeah, because I mean, I know of it, but I imagine people are listening and watching going, a Viking site. Hold on a minute. I thought we were talking a minute ago. We was talking about saving birds of prey. Now he's talking about Vikings. So, what on earth is the link between Brockswood Animal Sanctuary and the Viking site?
Right. Well, we something we'll probably touch on a bit later on is the fact that we have to have a zoo license. Right. No, we're not a zoo, not in the traditional sense, and probably never going to be, although we may end up developing into slightly more exotics, but we're never going to be lions and tigers, giraffes and rhinos and that sort of thing. But we have to have a zoo license. The reason we have to have a zoo license is because we're open to the public more than 6 days a year, and there is no other licensing or way of opening legally to the public other than the zoo license, so we don't have any choice. We try and use the zoo license to our benefit in that, you know, it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us at the forefront. At least every year, you've got other people coming in, that extra set of eyes, you know, to look at what you're doing and scrutinise what you're doing. So it's good in that respect. But every zoo license in this country, doesn't matter whether you are a big zoo or a small zoo. And as it happens, the majority of zoos in this country are like us, smaller places, rescue centres that are open, bird of prey centres. They're all, you know, if they're open to the public, then they've got a zoo licence. Right, okay. But every zoo licence has education, conservation and research as a rider, you know, and you have to be involved in that. Obviously, the way we would get involved in research is not the way the likes of some of the big boys like London Zoo or Chester Zoo would get involved in research. For us, our research is the fact that we have a lot of geriatric farm animals. The big zoos, as I quoted, you know, sort of London Zoo, Chester Zoo, the big
Just
boys,
the,
they can send people abroad and they can work, they can afford to send staff out to work on projects with elephants and lions and tigers in the wild and that sort of thing. We just can't do that. So we had to do something that was, right for us and in keeping with the size of what we are and really what we can afford to do. And we spoke to our vets. Our main vet is a farm animal vet, obviously, because the majority of animals we've got are farm animals. And then we come up with this plan whereby we started to record formally the work that they did with our animals. So, we have pigs a lot older than most vets will ever see. We've got sheep that are teenagers. So the thought of treating, say, a sheep for arthritis, say, is not something that most people would even think about because they don't live that long. Even rare breeds, will not make it much past 4 or 5 years, when in reality they can live borderline 20 years. So what we started to do is we started to record all of this because we treat our animals here just like you would your pet dog. If your dog gets to 10 years old and gets a touch of arthritis, you're not just going to put it down because it's got a touch of arthritis. And we take exactly the same approach with the goats and the sheep and the pigs. So they tend to be on medications that most places don't have goats and sheep and pigs on, and we record all of this, and then that's available then not only for our own vets but for other vets to share. We had an animal, it was lame in this way, it was doing this and that, we tried these treatments, that treatment, this is what worked, that what didn't work, and then hopefully that will create a body of knowledge that then other vets can use in the future.
And there's your education again.
It's education again. And as I say, it is genuine research because sometimes the vets, when I say they don't know what they're doing, that's unfair. What I'm saying is it's not something that they're used to doing. And,
it's not their experience or expertise, is it? They don't get many people
even
rocking
our vets are learning from us, from our animals, I should say.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, fascinating! Absolutely fascinating. Like your education thing, that is not just to the school children. It goes to these trained, qualified, experienced medical veterinary professionals, doesn't it? Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. We were going to do a joint project with Dudley Zoo to map out all the fauna and flora and wildlife on this site, and then go down Cotwell End Valley. There's a joint project with Dudley Zoo and their conservation volunteers and ours. But thirdly, education, that's where the Viking thing come into it.
Right, okay.
And every animal place like us will automatically educate regarding animals. It's in your DNA. It's what you do. You automatically do that. And I was trying to look and find something a little bit off the wall, a little bit outside of the box. And to cut a very long story short,
I think you've done that. I think you've hit that one.
Yeah, I was having a pint with a mate of mine back when the pubs were long ago, when the pubs were open, and there was some other people in the pub, friend of a friend, who happened to be a reenactor, and we got into a conversation where he basically told me that, because he asked me where we were based, and I said we're based in Sedgley, and he said, "Oh, that was a Saxon village," and then went on to say that Lee, as in, sorry about that, Lee is a clearing in the woods, and then that's where the Saxons built their villages. So Sedgley would have been a Saxon village, at Dudley, Colsley, Wordsley, so on. And then, excuse me, let me turn this.
That's all right.
Two-way radios are great in an emergency, but not when you're on a Zoom call.
At least you know they work.
And I thought, that's really interesting. And then what it became a way of bringing education into the site and also local history. And I can then do a lot of things. It helps us then with our school offerings. So we're not just doing animal care, conservation, a bit of horticulture, which is what we do with some of the students with learning difficulties, but then the local history as well. So we got a very rounded type of educational offering.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
where the village came from.
That's
It
amazing. And it's a
literally is.
different type. Sorry, it's a different type of history as well, because normally, you know, the Black Country is kind of hounded on the Industrial Revolution, the coal mining, etc., etc. You know, and that's normally what's kind of piped through in terms of you will learn about this if you live in this area. So that's fascinating, but you know, there's a lot more to it, isn't there? Going back hundreds of years.
There is, and from a business point of view, it's given us, you know, a little bit of an edge, because most places like this, I like Broxwood, chase school visits. You know, you know, in the summer you get the schools in. It's a good way to educate, and it's a good source of income. You know, but right now I've got the schools chasing me, wanting to know when it's going to be finished. So that's put us in a good position. You know, and then I can, you know, we can, as I say, we can offer a very rounded package that includes everything, not just animal care and conservation and environment with the site, but into local history. And the schools seem very, very interested in it.
Yeah, and so they should be, because that is an offering that other people don't have in terms of a USP. I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. So, thank you for sharing that with me. I always wondered how that, you know, when you walk, because it's one of the first things as well, isn't it? When you walk out of like the entranceway of the gift shop, you see like the player, and then you go, hold on a minute, you know, what is that over there? And who are all those people and things? And that's fascinating. So for anybody visiting, that's how it got there. That's brilliant. I imagine that you have had some financial challenges for the ages, even when you're normally open, you know, and in the last year, your financial challenges and how important then has kind of donations and the local community and other stakeholders been in that, in terms of providing you with goods and services. And I know you've got wish lists on Amazon and things like that. How important is all of that to keeping Broxwood's doors open eventually?
Right. Well, I think it's safe to say that without supporters, we wouldn't have made it through the first lockdown. It took me the first lockdown, all of it, to sort of get my head around a new way of working. I mean, and when we open to the public again, the way we will be operating and what we'll be doing are completely different to what we were doing 2 years ago. Right. But it takes time to get your head into that game, to get around it. How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? And if it hadn't been for our supporters in the first lockdown, literally donating loads of money, other businesses coming on board, providing us with all sorts of stuff, the supermarkets giving us food, that's, you know, and you know, we wouldn't have survived. It's as simple as that, because it would have took too long to change what we were doing. And in an environment where the whole country is closed, you know, even the ideas that you have to think, how can we change what we do? How can we do things differently? How can we, you know, make ourselves future-proof? And something like COVID really does make you sit down and think, you know, how do we future-proof ourselves? Because for years and years, what we had done is we'd open to the public. We had, you know, we raised money over the summer, and then you sort of, your bank account builds up, and then as we get to October, you know, October half term would be our last sort of biggie with the public, and then really for us there was nothing then until Easter, because most February half terms it rains, so you know we wouldn't get a lot of visitors anyway. So really there was nothing. So you know your bank account would go up, and you'd hopefully make enough money to get, you know, to get through the winter, and then the bank account would dip down again. Then you get towards Easter and you're thinking, if we have a bad Easter and it rains and we don't get a lot of public in, you know, and we took the conscious decision to really try and smooth that out now. And I'm as guilty as of this as a lot of people are. Is you get stuck in traditional ways of doing it when you know when you've been working with this sort of sawtooth type income, you know, for years. You get to live with it. You get to, you know, it becomes second nature. But what COVID did was, thankfully, it snapped me out of that. And I'm now thinking completely differently, how we smooth our income, what we do.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, before COVID, we had decided to do a lot more events. I mean, if you think that we were only open 6 months of the year, and then we're only open during the daytime, then you're only open 25% of the time. Yeah. So it then started to get to, well, we need to increase our season. We need to increase what we do with the site. And we had, to be fair, we had started to do that. We work with local dog clubs in the summer that use our car park and empty paddocks for dog training, that sort of thing, which started to bring on more events. I think last year would have been our 5th dog show, but it would have only been our 3rd Christmas. A couple of years ago, we decided to do Christmas, and that increased our season. So instead of closing at the end of October, what we did was we kept open weekends only, and then did our Christmas events, which proved to be really popular, and then closed from Christmas to April. But now we're bringing on more and more stuff that being closed now is becoming a thing of the past. The dog shows, one of the things we used to do on the dog show is we would always put an empty paddock to one side, so people could use that and let the dogs off the lead. So if they're here all day, and it's a hot day and everything, the dogs need to let off steam. So and people kept saying, this is a great idea, this is a great idea. And we decided finally to completely turn over one of our paddocks to a dog run. It's one that we don't use an awful lot. And we've spent the last few months putting a big 6-foot fence, nice safe fence all the way around it. And it's gonna provide extra income when we're open and an extra service for the public. Because one of the other things is ironically, we don't deal with dogs. Dogs and cats are not some of the animals that we deal with, but by being a dog-friendly site, which a lot of places like this aren't, and it took us a few years to get that sorted and get our insurance company's head around the fact that you're an animal site and you want to let dogs around. Means that the dogs are going to be a good thing for us. And especially now, because you've probably seen in the news at the moment, there's so many people having dogs stolen, being mugged for their dogs when they're taking them for a walk. Well, we're going to take a paddock, a field, quite a big one that we didn't use for sort of reasons I won't bore you with, and make that into a facility where people can come with their dogs, let them off the lead. They're completely safe. They're not going to run off like if you just let them to another park, and nobody's going to come up to you and steal your dog off you. So
and who'd have ever thought that would be something you'd have to consider? I mean, that's just unfortunately the world that we live in has been changed a bit in the last year or so, but that is now a thing that a dog owner has to consider, and you're providing that kind of safe space for them. And the events are stunning. We've still got a picture from the Christmas event on our dining room table, because it's one of our favourite pictures of our daughter. So no pressure for anybody else going there, but good grief, the one where you had, it was a couple of years ago, where you had it going down amongst the trees and the grotto, and you had the cellars and everything, and it was just so nice. So thanks for that. It's provided lifelong memories for me, my daughter, my wife, and probably loads of others. I think was that your first?
That was the first one. Yeah, we did it. We did it all in the woods. But this year's is going to be using the Viking village. We're going to go full Norse Christmas village.
Oh wow!
So
well, we'll see you again then. We'll
definitely if it looks half as good as it does in my head at the moment, it's going to be fantastic.
That's brilliant. So what's next for Broxwood then? You were talking, we said at the start, in terms of changing ownership. And some of the technicalities around that. We've talked about zoo licenses, again, things that you would only consider. You think a zoo license, you go, it's only Dudley and Chester and London that really need that. Little Broxwood doesn't need it, but obviously you do. And what about then you as a business? Because at the end of the day, you are still an organisation, you are a business. You've talked about the finances coming in and going out and expenditures. So what's next business-wise then and ownership-wise for Broxwood? If you're allowed to say, don't have to give too many secrets away.
Oh no, it's no secret. We run very, very much like any sanctuary, any not-for-profit charity would run. We have made a conscious decision for Broxwood not to be a charity, which surprises a lot of people. There's a lot of reasons for that, but at the end of the day, the nutshell description would be charity is very, very constricting, and I don't like to be constricted. As you can see, some of the ideas that we have, some of the things that we do, the way we've diversified, takes us what the Charity Commission would see as away from our core. Like the dogs, we don't rescue dogs, so dogs are not part of our core business. But in reality, I don't see it like that. And this is where it makes it very difficult. So right from the start, we made a conscious decision that we wouldn't be a registered charity, and instead we would be a not-for-profit. Now, we registered Broxford as a company limited by guarantee. So, as you're probably aware, that means that there's no share capital, but it is a company, and we follow all the same rules and regulations. Apart from there's no share capital, that means there's no dividend that goes out to shareholders or anything like that. So, Broxford isn't technically owned by anybody; it is an entity in its own right. And that has worked well for us. It's been good. It's suited us until very recently. And I think what we are looking at doing now is changing the legal status of, not the ownership, but the legal status of Broxwood to a CIC, a community interest company, because that seems to be taking over from company limited by guarantee as being this sort of recognised social enterprise structure. It also, there's a lot more grants available now for CICs and companies limited by guarantee. So, if it's the government's preferred way of setting up a social enterprise, then if it benefits Broxford, then that's what we'll move over to. And I think there are so many social enterprises setting up now as CICs. I also think the general public understand better what a CIC is than I do a company limited by guarantee. So we're going to be, when things settle down a bit, we're going to be just changing the legal status to help us basically move forward and help us with the sort of things that we want to do. As I said, we created a 3-year strategic plan, which we've never done before, as in got all of our ideas, everything we want to do, the passion for what we want to do, how we want to perceive us, how we perceive us to be in the future, and put all that into a plan. That plan, I still believe, is on our website. I'm just looking at Claire now, who's nodding furiously. Yeah, that plan is on our website, and anybody can go and see it, look at it. The students can go and see it, look at it, download it. Yes, we put it up there beginning of last year, and we all know what happened last year. So we're not as into it as we should be. Yeah. So we'll probably, once we get open, which will probably be in a couple of weeks' time, once we get open and things are settled down, I might look at rewriting that. And so that as we get towards the end of this year and we start into 22, we'll start on our 3-year plan again.
Brilliant. Yeah, and you would not be the only business that has had to change their plans a little bit in the last year or so. No. Good grief. I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, if that's all right. Firstly, How are you feeling about the next few weeks and months as we start to open up, but open up differently and open up to certain types of people in certain ways? How are you and the team feeling about all of that?
I'm feeling cautious, but I'm also quite excited because we really have looked at what we do, how we do it, and we're making some significant changes. For example, we have a calf, as you know, and that calf's been there since the 60s. But when we opened last year, we couldn't do food. Although there's a lot of places still we were able to do food, because that calf is also a shop and it's also our entrance and reception. It's everything all in one.
Yep.
We couldn't meet the requirements to do food. And we discovered we didn't need to. So there's a lot of heartache goes into providing, chips and hot butties and, nuggets and all the other things that we were trying to do, jacket potatoes and everything. We couldn't do any of it. And then we discovered last year we didn't need to.
Wow.
So, the shop, that area, we'll still do stuff because people, what we actually did was we sort of migrated into sort of coffee shop. So that, we got ourselves sponsored a real fancy coffee machine, and we can do our vanilla lattes and iced lattes and all the sort of stuff. And that combined with some really nice cakes and a few little treats is all our customers really want.
Yeah. And that's a decision that you might not have. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, I inherited the cafe and what it is and what it does. And it's very easy just to go with what's already. It's so hard to take a step back and think, what if? It seemed, if you'd have spoke to me 3 years ago about not doing chips on dog show day in the cafe, I'd have laughed at you. What do you want? But last year proved it, and it's given, if nothing else, it's given us a deeper understanding of what our customers want. So in that respect, I'm excited to open because we've taken all the tables and chairs out of the cafe completely now.
Wow.
It's going to be, we've set it up as a bigger selling area, and we're diversifying into the sort of things that we've been talking to our supporters about and what they want. With the dog run opening very soon, there'll be more dog products. Last year, we tried a few unusual things. One of the things was a dry mix for tortoises.
Right. I love that. Again, these ideas, I imagine my students watching this going, hold on, right, we were on Vikings about 10 minutes ago, and now we're on dry mixes for tortoises, and all these decisions that have come through simply because of like COVID and things like that, but you've just kind of gone in this direction where you might never have gone on. Sorry, you were going to talk about tortoises. Tell me about that.
Well, as I said, we got a sister sanctuary, Proteus Reptile Trust.
You do.
And twice a year, Proteus, well, it hasn't been, and we can't do it this April, but twice a year we do something we call a tortoise MOT. And basically the public bring their tortoises to us. And we do this normally prior to hibernation and post hibernation, because there's still a lot of the tortoise, excuse me, still a lot of tortoises kept in this country, and Mediterranean tortoises that hibernate. So people come and they bring them to us, and then we're not vets, not by a long shot. We don't profess to be, but what we do is we weigh them and we measure them, and we see that they're the right weight to go into hibernation for their size, and spot if there's any issues, overgrown beaks, as they call them, the front horny part of a tortoise's nose, the bottom bit goes into the lip, it's called a beak. Overgrown nails, we can see if they're calcium deficient, and then we'll say, give them advice on hibernation, and then also give them, names of vets who, if we think they need to see a vet, they can go and they can get it from. But what we do is we also sell products on that day. Sorry, excuse me.
No, that's fine.
Obviously, because that brings in a bit of money for Proteus. So one of the things that we sell is a dry mix, and we take all these different dried herbs and plants and whatnot, and we make our own mix. And the idea is that you take your normal tortoise food that you do, and you sprinkle some of these mix on it, and they get all the vitamins and nutrients that they need.
Okay.
And we've only really ever sold them on that day, because that day is when you're sitting in a room and you've got 20 tortoise keepers, all the tortoises in baskets in front of you.
Your customers are right there, aren't they? Your target market, as we started speaking about earlier. Right.
And then I have to say, it was Claire's idea to, she's grinning now.
Thank you. Gotta love a shout out.
Yeah. Why don't we see if we can sell them? So we she did a little sign. We got some of these bags. We got a ledge, a window ledge. It's just at the back of where we sell our ice creams in the cafe. Lined them up on there, and people were selling them. We'd be amazed how many people keep tortoises.
Wow.
So we're looking at doing our own little sort of thing, like tortoise mix, our own sort of mix for wild birds, our own chicken mix, because we put stuff into our chicken feed that some people don't, like mint and things like that. So we're using the space more to, well, I suppose, yeah, we're selling and we're making money, but it's helping people again, because it's, if we're giving people a better quality of food, a better supplement for their animals, then one, it helps us to survive, because obviously we're making a profit on it. But secondly, it's meeting our core of what we want to do, which is help people make the best of the animals and treat them properly, and give them the as much respect and kindness and help as we can. So it sort of ticks a number of boxes. So this year, because last year what we did was we moved all our tables over to one side, covered them up so people couldn't sit on them. We had a row of tables out because we get a lot of donated stuff. We haven't got a charity shop as such. We did have, but we were just about to open it as coronavirus hit, and I had to let it go. That was one of the first things that I had to do, was to let that go. And I don't know whether you remember from coming on site, but as you go out the back of the cafe, and you've got the play area in front of you on the left-hand side, it's like a log cabin, which is just a junk store, if I'm not completely honest, like most businesses have. But what we did was we cleared that out, and we're going to make that our on-site charity shop, where we couldn't open it last year. So we put out all the goods that people donated to us on one side of the cafe, and all the new stuff that we buy in on the other side of the cafe. And it worked really well. And we didn't have to do food. We added a few more extra products. And we're going to add a few more this year, including, I think this year is going to be our first Broxwood calendar that I've already started to have discussions about, because, if we can get that in there by July, then we'll be selling our calendars before everybody else is selling theirs. So people won't have an excuse not to buy one of ours, because they've already got somebody else's.
Exactly. Yeah. That is a prime excuse for not buying one, isn't it? So, I mean, that's fascinating to hear, about how everything you're doing comes back to the core. Are you helping? Are you educating? Are you caring for? And you're providing, a fun day out for families and things. That is something very different in that area. But we can't really get elsewhere. That kind of relaxed but fun and adventurous for the youngsters day out, which is just brilliant. And obviously, we can hit your website, I presume, if we wanted to find out more information and donate and things like that. All the buttons are on there, aren't they, for us to do that?
Yes.
Which is really exciting, and I hope people listening and watching do that. I mean, I'm excited to see you all again, and we haven't told my daughter yet, because she'll just be not sleeping every night. Well, is it today? Is it today? So we're not letting her see the social media posts and the dates and things. So, but we'll be back. I can't wait to get down there, and I'm sure you can't wait to see the general public as well.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you. I think I've lost count of how many questions I was going to ask, but last one now. Promise, kind of, depending on what you say, but probably promise. If you could go back, and give some advice now to like the 17, 18-year-olds, you were talking earlier about the ones in animal care. What advice would you give to these people who are looking to start careers, whether it's animal care or whether it's, the marketing, the social media side, business development, business ownership? What advice would you give to 17, 18-year-olds? Maybe you wish somebody had told you and you'd stuck to save you a bit of heartache. What would you say?
Volunteer, if I'm honest, because that gives you true insight into something. If you think you want to go into something, then don't just read about it. Don't just look at YouTube and Instagram stuff. Just go and do it. And the best way to go and do it is to go and do it with a voluntary group, a not-for-profit, and see if you like it. And it's the only way. It's the only way to know if it's for you, is to get in there, get off your backside, go do it. And if you don't like it, then that's fine. You
Yeah,
know,
great.
you found something that and you haven't wasted years. I mean, and I'm going back to my own experience with this
Yeah, that's
because
fine.
I am a chartered engineer by trade. I was brought up in Willenhall, locksmithing and all the rest of it, all the factories around in the Black Country. It was just inevitable that I went into industry, and that's exactly what I did. I started in a plating plant, went to college, ONC, HNC, HND, as you do, all in industry, carried on and went through various things. And I ended up working for an aerospace company with jet engines, only to hit my late 30s and realise, this isn't what I want to do.
Yeah.
I never did any work experience. I never went into the factories, and not just the factories. I mean, factories. I mean, people don't understand. Some factories, they've got laboratories and things like that. Where you're testing materials and solutions, and that's where I ended up. But I never had any work experience. I never really went into it, and I spent the early part of my career. I don't regret because I learned a lot. But if I'd have done the work experience, I'd have probably took a different route earlier on and be currently a more experienced and better sanctuary manager than I am right now, because I wouldn't have lost them 15, 20 years. So that's my personal take on it.
That's a fantastic personal take. As soon as you said volunteer, I was thinking, right, this is getting played over and over and over again in my class. Because it is something, I mean, things like we've got the Commonwealth Games coming up next year, there's 10,000 volunteers. Why would you not sign up for that, and get yourself in there and just to try it and go, yeah, I don't really like sports that much, so I'm not going to do that. But rather spend a couple of weeks, or just a couple of days can help you decide, make your mind up.
I have a volunteer here, and he is volunteered for one place or another most of his adult life, including political parties, green parties, football clubs, and that sort of thing. And the amount of knowledge and experience that he has amassed just volunteering for different groups over the years is amazing. And you can't replace that with anything.
No, you can't get it by reading and watching. You've got to go out and do it. That's fascinating. So, well, listen, I'm going to say thank you very much. I'm going to pause this in a second. We'll say goodbye on here, and then just stay on the line. We'll have a quick chat before you go. I'm sure you've got a real busy day ahead of you. But thank you so much, really, for taking the time. You've hit on so many of the things that we look at and read about in textbooks and on websites and things. So to hear the real version is stunning, and I hope it inspires people, and maybe you'll have a few more visitors from over our side of town, and or Birmingham, if you're not sure where town is, anybody listening and watching. But thank you so much, really, Neil. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't believe we're up to like an hour already. I know. But yeah, thank you so much, and
welcome.
Yeah, really appreciate it. We'll see you soon down at Brockswood Animal Sanctuary. See you soon.
Okay, I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you. Wow, what an insight there. Thank you, Neil. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat to me, and for everybody listening and watching this video. A fascinating, unique and insightful experience there, learning about what goes into running an animal sanctuary, and that it really isn't as simple as people might think, and there's a lot to it. So Neil, thanks very much. Really appreciate you giving the time there for that. And if you have listened and watched this, then again, thanks to you. You can find us on all their social media channels. Have a look for Pardo's Business or Mr. Pardo's Business, and you'll find me on there. Thank you very much for listening or watching. And if you liked what you heard, like, share, subscribe, rate, review, and all those good things, because I really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.